All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to our monthly Opportunities in Health IT session. I'm Dr. Charlene Banta. I'm the Program Director of the Health Information Technology Program at St. John's River State College. Our HIT Student Association is pleased to partner with the Northeast Florida Health Information Management Association to offer these monthly lunch and learn sessions where we feature the stories of health IT and health information management professionals. So a couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone on the call is muted. Feel free to enter questions in the chat box. At the end of the formal presentation, you can unmute and ask verbally. One CEU will be granted for attendance, and the process for claiming that credit will be shared at the end of the presentation. If you're a student attending today for credit in one of my courses, do be sure that your full name is displaying. If it's not, just enter it in the chat for me so that I know you're here. The session is being recorded as well. So our speaker today is Beth Nelson. Beth is a compliance governance lead who serves as a compliance subject matter expert for New York City Health and Hospitals at RightSourcing, which is located in California, but she works full-time remotely from Tampa Bay. So she has a wealth of information to share and a really extensive history that I'm excited for her to join us for today. We thank you so much for being with us, Beth. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, as Charlene said, I am Beth Nelson. Actually, Elizabeth Nelson, but I go by Beth. I am currently employed with RightSourcing as a compliance governance lead. I have been actually in the HIM and HIT field for about 13 years now. It's been quite a while. I earned my associate's degree in health information management and my bachelor's degree in health services administration, and that's got a minor in compliance and security. Those are both from St. Petersburg College in St. Petersburg, Florida, here in Tampa Bay. I actually worked full time and went to school full time both with those, so it was kind of interesting and fun. And taught me a lot about myself, and especially with the bachelor's degree, because that was a much more intense program, but it was still fun. I currently hold an RHIT and I'm currently getting ready to sit for a CHC, which is Certified in Healthcare Compliance, which is more geared towards my role that I'm doing now. I was born in Norwalk, Ohio, and raised in Columbus, Ohio. So, as that says there, I'm a big diehard Buckeyes fan. So, had to put that in there. Like I said, my education is my associate's is in health information management. When I finished with my associate's degree, actually before I finished, I started as an intern at a local company here in Tampa Bay. It was a staffing company called Med Partners. And I worked with them as an intern and got hired on before I actually graduated, which was nice. So I had the security of a job. And I was there for the past, well, previously 7 years. I ended up getting my bachelor's degree when I was working with them, and they actually helped along the way with some coverage of books, and they also helped pay for my credential, which was really nice. So that's kind of a nice thing to look for when you go to look for jobs and everything when you're done, is if they reimburse for education and things like that. So that was really a good quality for the company that I was with. And I am getting ready to start back for my master's degree. Not sure where I want to go yet. I just know that I want to get my master's and seeing where that's going to take me. My credentials is the RHIT, the Registered Health Information Technician through AHIMA. And I was previously going to go for my RHIA, which I still might, which is Registered Health Information Assistant. But I'm not too sure if I'm going to go that route or if I'm just going to do the CHC, which is the Certified in Healthcare Compliance. Like I said, the compliance one is more geared towards what I got my bachelor's degree in, so I want to make sure I can go more towards that. So I'm not too sure which one I'm going to do, but definitely the CHC. So at RightSourcing, I am a compliance governance lead. I started there actually recently in November. Some of the duties that I have every day, it's actually probably more than this, but it's a very hectic and crazy, fun-filled day every day. Sometimes there's audits thrown into on top of this. But as a compliance governance lead for New York City Health and Hospitals, I'm the subject matter expert for the compliance department for New York City. So anybody that is employed through New York City Health and Hospitals facilities, all the suppliers, which are staffing companies, I'm their liaison. I clear compliance. I let them know if something's missing from a background check or if something's on the background check, all kinds of different things that are involved inside of every single employee's file. I track their licensures and credentials for all New York City Health, and that includes doctors, that includes nurses. There's some coders once in a while, but it's more providers. Right now, they're seeing a big surge of employees for doctors and for nurses, and definitely respiratory therapists, as New York City Health and Hospitals actually bought out 5 different hotels in New York City, and they are staffing them with just employees to for anybody who's coming into New York that is sick or have symptoms of COVID. Instead of going to the hospital, they go to these hotels since they're not from New York, and they actually stay there for 2 weeks at a time. So we're employing people. There's doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists. We have front desk associates, the cooks, the housekeepers, everything that we actually are putting through our healthcare compliance stuff because it's all part of it's pretty much a mini hospital and a hotel. I also update the client's matrix. So this is pretty much what we live by for compliance when it comes to the matrix every day. The matrix is something that we have to make sure we don't change anything. New York City is the one that comes to us and tells us exactly what they want for their compliance for each employee. And there's different compliance standards for nurses, for doctors, and for any other kind of specialty. So we have to go by it's this huge grid on a spreadsheet, which is very very intense, but it's got a lot of information on there. And so I'm in charge of making sure New York City's is up to date. When sometimes I could get updates daily or it could be every week. It just depends on if COVID is spiking again or if there's other factors that are coming into play. I'm the point of contact, like I said, for everything New York City related. So if I get an audit on top of all my other daily tasks, then audits come first. Audits are sometimes when JCO comes into the facility and they want to make sure that we're, of course, keeping correct compliance. So there's some of those that come along every once in a while, especially if they're in the survey period. I work with the client services team also, which is kind of a liaison between the suppliers and me and the compliance side. And we kind of also work with the client together. So it's kind of a big group of people that work together just to make sure that this facility is up and running and compliance is correct. Right now, I'm actually volunteering as well. I'm a member of FAHEMA, which is the Florida sector of AHEMA. So I am a MRSC, which is Member Retention and Student Engagement Committee. I started that in October and I'm still on it now. It's a 1-year commitment. So what I do is it's just a couple different things that we actually do. Right now we're prepping to spotlight students and workers and people who are already on the active into FAHEMA. So we are spotlighting different things. Like for right now, my job is we got 4 students who we're going to spotlight throughout this year. So we're getting their background, their bios and their pictures, and we're going to do like small little interviews with them and then put that on social media so we can kind of bring awareness to FAHEMA and AHEMA, what we do and what's so good about it. So I work with the director of that, the chair committee, I should say, and we meet actually once a week. So it's kind of fun. It's nice to be able to meet and connect with other people in the field and see what they do compared to what I do, and if I can be helpful to them or if they can be helpful to me, which has happened in the past. Because you go to these meetings, We also have the Gulf Coast AHEMA that I go to. And so I'll go to those meetings once every quarter. And it's kind of fun because you can just network and meet people who, like I said, are doing the same kind of thing that you are. And it's nice to be able to network and have connections. So my career path so far, I was originally, as I say, in a former lifetime, I was a medical assistant when I lived up in Ohio, which seems like a lifetime ago. And I then moved to Florida, and I ended up becoming a temp at a front desk medical records department, and actually at Tampa General Hospital. And that lasted for a little while. And then I ended up going on full time there in the release of information department. And that's where I really started my compliance background and my whole associates and everything, because I realized I really was passionate about the compliance part, the medical records, just everything kind of involving with the healthcare compliance part of it. Um, that's when I was at Tampa General is when I started my associates, and then when I was getting ready to do my internship is when I went to Med Partners, and that's where I was a Blackboard administrator. So that kind of took me in a different route. So I still worked with healthcare, but I was on the back end of it in the education department. So I was a Blackboard administrator, which I would do all of the grading. I would make the HIPAA presentations, which was a big thing for me because I love HIPAA, and I would do all of the education for coding, any kind of CEUs that were involved, all that stuff was in Blackboard. So I housed all of that. I did audits and all kinds of stuff on that. So it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, but it was a stepping stone. So then next I went to still Med Partners was the credentialing and licensure specialist. And I more or less was on the compliance side for education, making sure that all the employees, which are there was all coders and nurses, trauma registrars, that kind of thing. And I would make sure that their credentials were up to date. And if not, we had CEUs I could direct them to, just that kind of thing. And I worked with the recruiters and the account managers to make sure that everybody's compliance was up to date. Because if you know anything, you can't go to work without a valid credential. So if you're a nurse, you can't have an expired license. If you're a coder, you cannot have an expired credential. So that's a big thing for compliance. And there was times when, people want to make sure that people can work, the recruiters, but it was one of those things that was where I started my compliance background, where I just was very forceful, but in a nice way. So I was very telling working there. Uh, Now I'm actually, during COVID, I was at Med Partners for 7 years. So last year in May, I actually got let go because of COVID restructuring. So it was a long year last year. And I kept thinking, with all my background, I couldn't find a job for months and months, which was very devastating because I'd had these degrees and all this experience, but nothing. I couldn't get anything. Luckily, RightSourcing reached out to me, and I applied for something and thinking, there's no way, it's just going to be another disappointment. But it wasn't. It was great. And I started there as a senior compliance governance analyst. And within actually a month, I ended up getting a promotion to compliance governance lead. I just kind of took over the role of the New York City. The girl had left, and they thought I did a great job. And luckily, with my background with the bachelor's degree, it helped me really start communicating more with, you know, uh, different associates and things like that. So I was able to really convey what they needed in a compliance person. So that's what I'm doing now. It's been a whirlwind of the 13 years for sure, but fun and very, very meaningful. So some of the benefits of where I work at is it's very fast paced. I can tell you honestly, I probably answer 70 to 80 something emails a day. And that's not an exaggeration. That's what I mean. I get emails in from suppliers or about New York City. It's one of the biggest clients that we have. And so I'm in charge of making sure that these emails get answered in a timely fashion. And most of it's investigating stuff to make sure that the compliance is correct. Or if something's missing, I let them know what's going on. Just different things. Or if they need to remove someone from an assignment because something's gone wrong, just that kind of stuff. I am the subject matter expert, like I said, for New York City, so that comes with a lot of brain work. I'll say it's fun, but it's very tedious at times. I'm always learning, and that's one thing I definitely love about this field is I get to learn all the time. Nothing's ever the same. Healthcare changes constantly, especially with compliance, especially with COVID. You just got to roll with the punches, and it's fun. and also giving back. I like to make sure that I can be there for others, even at work, just to, help out any kind of, if they have questions about anything, I can get on a phone call with them. I'll screen share with them, and it's just the small things that they really enjoy about working with me. Some of the challenges are staying up to date. Like I said, there's so many changes daily, practically. And so what I do definitely with the matrix is staying up to date with that. It can get very, like I said, tedious, but it's a lot to handle and it's fun. The bandwidth, I sometimes will forget to try and eat lunch, so I have to go and grab something to eat from the kitchen, and I have to remind myself or set a timer because I forget, honestly. Communication can be challenging also. I try my hardest to communicate, but there's some who necessarily don't communicate as well. So I will constantly follow back up. But that's a big thing, I think, everywhere is communication or lack of communication. Um, and that's one of the things I definitely learned in the bachelor's degree program was the communication part. So that definitely helped. Delegation is hard for me. I am the type of person who I know if I can get it done in the correct way, just gonna do it. I'm not gonna pass it off to anybody else. Um, and that can be hard sometimes, especially if I have a day off or if I need to take time off. It's very hard for me. And the environment, I enjoy working from home. It's nice to not have to get up and drive to work every day, but it can get kind of I guess claustrophobic in a way, if that makes sense. I make sure I have a window open every day, that kind of thing, walk outside just to get the mail, just small things because I had to make sure I'm not going crazy inside this house. So recommendations that I have for you guys is definitely study hard. I know a lot of you are probably working full time or even part time and going to school. It's a lot of work. I did it, like I said, for both degrees, and I went online for both degrees. So I would work all day at either the hospital or at Med Partners where I was at before on the computer all day and then come home and get on the computer at nighttime and study for a couple hours at a time. So it was hard, but it was definitely worth it. Networking is a big thing. Like I said before, when you go to if you get a chance to go to those meetings or your regional meetings or the state meetings or anything like that, it's always a great opportunity because you just don't know what you're going to find. You could have things that you would think you would never get into and you do. I know with my degree I could go the coding route and I thought about that at one point, but then I realized that I could do the compliance stuff and I loved it. And so I networked with compliance people there and they're actually still in my contacts now as on LinkedIn and stuff because I can reach out to them and say, "Hey, I've got this. Can I run this by you real quick?" And it's just nice to have that interaction. Um, Set incremental and long-term goals. Was not a good goal person when I was younger. I just kind of went with the flow, and now that's one of those things I'm very passionate about is making sure that my goals I have long-term goals as well, and not just necessarily for my job. I want to make sure I have them personally as well. Um, this just helps me just kind of set the focus for where I want to go in my career. Get involved with community. I definitely am passionate about this as well because like I said, I'm on the FAHIMA board committee, and I enjoy that too because I really am. I want people to get involved with FAHIMA. I think it's a good opportunity to be able to just showcase what we have, what we are able to do. Mentor and mentee relationships. I actually am a mentor to two students who are in my same area of Florida. So I have two ladies that I mentor. If they have questions on something about a credential or their degree, or they just want advice on how I handled something, then I talk with them, I communicate with them. So that's really fun. And then stay relevant. Um, that's a big part of making sure that you can succeed is staying relevant because if you're not relevant then you're probably most stuff's probably not accurate. So it's like I said, it's constant changing in a good way, and so you just have to make sure you're staying up to date. And Charlene, did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so for those who want to earn that one CEU of credit for being here today, shoot me an email. You can reach me at charlenebanta@sjrstate.edu. I'll put it in the chat here as well if you want to just copy and paste it. Send me a note, let me know you were here, and we'll get that certificate out to you.
And that's my contact information, or you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. Um, I'm always available for questions, or if you have need thoughts on something or opinions, I'm definitely more than happy to help and reach out.
Well, Beth, thank you so much for this informative talk. I have to say, this was super timely. We just met with our advisory board yesterday, which is made up of um, professionals from healthcare organizations all around our region. And one of the top topics that came out of that talk was the need to get compliance topics in front of our students. So you responded to that call really quickly, and I thank you for
Oh,
that.
good.
This has been really interesting um, and valuable for sure.
Oh,
So
great.
we want to open it up for questions. If
Yes.
you have any questions for Beth, feel free to enter them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask verbally.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Mhm.
This is Catherine. When you finished, excuse me, when you finished your RIHD degree and you started your AA, did you find getting a job, doing your AA, and then moving into your bachelor's, did you find it was kind of overwhelming? Or I guess my question is, would you recommend doing your AA and your BA prior to getting a job, or would you recommend just doing it as you go?
That's a good question. For me personally, I enjoyed doing it um, as I was going along and working, and it helped me keep me more, um, I guess, relevant to the job, and it kind of helped me with school. And as I was going through my bachelor's degree where I was working, they noticed actually a difference in my email writing, just something simple. They said that we've noticed a big change in how you are communicating with people. And I said, that's because of my bachelor's degree. That's a lot of what you do in that is a lot of writing and stuff. So I definitely liked being able to work and go to school because it was kind of the best of both worlds for me.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I do see a question in the chat here. It says, I'm currently in RHIT as of July, going back for my bachelor's. Would love to get into compliance or quality. Would a Bachelor of Science in Healthcare Administration or Health Informatics Administration be more helpful?
I believe the first one probably would be. So when I went and did my bachelor's, it was Health Services Administration, but I also did the minor in compliance and security. So I kind of added that little extra in there. Um, so it was just more of instead of just having the Health Services Administration, it was more of a honed in on the compliance and security part, which was all about compliance and healthcare compliance, JCO, all that kind of stuff. So if you have an option to do like a side track with it or a minor with it, I would definitely recommend doing that because that would really help.
All right, excellent. She says thank you, and she'll see about adding that minor. Great information.
Great.
Any other questions? How would one get the certification in CHC? Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yes. So sorry about that. I cut out for a second. So yeah, so the CHC is actually from HCCA. It's a website, hcca.info.org. It's Healthcare Compliance Association. So with that, there's different kinds of credentials you can get through them. But the one definitely for sure, you have to be a member. So it's kind of the only thing that's the downfall of that is you have to be, well, like a HEMA, you have to be a member. And then also your credentials. So you have like your yearly dues and then your credential dues. But HCCA is definitely the website you're going to want to go to, because that really gives you all the information of the different kind of compliance related credentials. And it's for, of course, national. So it's covered all over the US. And it's, I can even, if I can put it into the chat, I can put there we go. I'll add, okay, she did that for me. Yes. So definitely take a look at that website, because it's very helpful, and it's one of the things I've been looking at for the past couple months.
Are there any degree requirements around that?
I believe it's just a bachelor's from what I remember. Yeah.
Any other questions? So Melissa asked, during the time when you were laid off, sounded scary. What did you do to stay relevant? And was it hard to get into another position because of the area you were located in?
Yes. So I was really devastated, honestly, when I got laid off, because I was there for so long. I was actually the first intern that they ever had. And so being through the whole transition of everything, it was really hard. And it was hard with the area I lived in, because there's, of course, lots of hospitals and stuff around Tampa Bay area, but no one was hiring. Or if they were, I just didn't have the right. I kept getting these emails and calls back from people saying, "Oh, well, your resume looks great, but there's not enough this, and this." And so it's like, no matter what, I couldn't get to the right place, and that's what was really frustrating. For me to stay relevant, what I did actually was I was studying for my RHIA before I left Med Partners. So I had a whole bunch of books. And so I just kept reading some of the compliance books out of there, and then also the HEMA journals. I did a lot with that. And then I would also just look up different things on LinkedIn for compliance, and just go to the compliance websites and read different compliance articles and different things like that.
All right, excellent. So April has a question about certain certifications having different degree requirements, and that is true. So in the HIT program at SJR State, we are preparing students for the RHIT and the CCA, so the Registered Health Information Technician, as well as the Certified Coding Associate. And those are a HEMA credentials that the RHIT requires the associate's degree, and there are certainly a wealth of other credentials from other organizations, such as the CHC that Beth introduced us today, that would have different degree requirements. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Beth.
I know that if you're going to go for the RHIA, which is just a little bit different than the RHIT, that is for once you get your bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Other questions? While we're waiting to see if other questions
Sorry, this
come
is
in.
Beverly. How long was your
Go ahead.
internship?
It was, I believe, 11 weeks. It was the last semester of my associate's degree, and I had a couple classes I took with it. So I did my internship and then that, but I believe it was 11 weeks altogether.
And so was there a mentoring part of that internship? Did you have a mentor?
Yeah, it was actually my boss at the time. She worked with me through a lot of things. I had a final project. So my final project for the internship was to do something for the education department that I worked for. So what I did was their HIPAA program. So what they didn't have, they had like a HIPAA questionnaire that they used before, but I took a PowerPoint and I made like a 30 slide PowerPoint, which I'm sure everybody just loved. I did, but I'm sure everybody else didn't. But I did all that and I outlined all the different kind of rules and regulations, all that kind of stuff. And then I did like a 20 question quiz. And so that was my final project I submitted to school as well, that I did this for the company. And they actually kept that for the whole 7 years I was there, and they probably are using it now. But I updated it every year. And so that was it started out as my senior project, but it was implementing the HIPAA requirements for the company.
Beverly said, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'd also like to just echo your comments on the significance of volunteering. I think that's a really important point that you made. I know it's through your work with FAHIMA volunteering with the Member Retention and Student Engagement Committee that our paths cross.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that they did. So volunteering, getting engaged with your regional and state organizations is just so important. Not only to give back, but also to expand your own network and get to know folks. So the value and benefit of that can't be overstated. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yes.
Any more questions? Our second half is completely driven by your questions. So if you don't have any, we'll be able to give you a few minutes back, but I do want to pause and give time to reflect and ask questions.
Really does have her hand up.
I'm sorry, repeat
that. 1 second. So as it gets closer to graduating, should you volunteer before you graduate or once you have graduated? What would you recommend?
What I did was afterwards, just because I had so much going on between school and work. And then once I was kind of set in my job, I wanted to then be able to volunteer, because it was kind of one of those things that, like, for now it's trying to get like the mentor and mentee volunteering thing. That's a part of my committee, and that's one of the things I do as well. So being able to help out with other students and kind of answer their questions and concerns and things like that. So I think it'd be better once you're graduated, because you have more time to probably focus on it.
Okay.
All right, well, oh, I see another one coming in. So Carly says, in Ohio, local chapters are always looking for students' opinions and participation. And so she is kind of echoing the call to check with your local chapters.
Yes. Nice to see you from Ohio, Carly. Yes, go Bucks. And yes, Alexis, definitely. Oh, nice. I know what that is.
And just a reminder, do send me an email at charlenebanta@sjrstate.edu for that CEU credit. You do get 1 CEU for attending today, and I will respond to your email and get that back to you today with that certificate for joining if you need that credit for your credentials.
I have another question.
Sure.
With your setting incremental goals and long-term goals, what were your first set of goals, I guess?
Well, actually, my first set of goals was for after the associates, was to sit for the RHIT. That was the biggest one, and my boss actually set that for me at the time, and it kind of freaked me out because I'm thinking, if something happens and I don't do well in this test, then is this going to affect my job? Thank goodness it went well and I got it. But that was the first thing that I did, and that was I was glad I did that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, if there are no further questions, I want to thank everyone for joining. This recording will be out on the NFEMA YouTube channel, along with all the other opportunities and HIT recordings that we have had the privilege of hosting over the years. Beth, can't thank you enough. This was a really interesting talk. I know I learned a lot. We really thank you for your time today and appreciate everyone joining. Have a good
Awesome.
day.
Thank you so much.